We are coming on the air tonight with devastating storms slamming states from New York to Texas, where a big and apparently very dangerous tornado has just touched down. We're watching that, plus the potential for more baseball-sized hail and torrential flash floods on the way, less than 24 hours after another set of deadly twisters tore through Iowa. People picking up the pieces and bracing for what's next. We're live on the ground. Then a rare meeting that literally just wrapped up at the White House between President Biden and the president of Kenya as part of this big push to get more police into Haiti. Why all of it could get derailed unless Congress gets on board. Plus, in tonight's original, our look from the field in Idaho on how politics is pushing some folks to pack up and move, and how some red state realtors are helping in that relocation. Then, does Amazon's new AI push mean an overhaul for your Alexa? Sure looks like it. We'll explain. We're watching a confirmed big tornado in central Texas, just about 24 hours after a different set of twisters devastated parts of Iowa. In Texas, search and recovery teams and rescue teams, I should say, are on the ground now. Want to show you, though, some of the drone video that we've seen as some people are just starting to pick up the pieces in Greenfield, Iowa. You can see it here. People's lives just ripped apart by what officials now think was an EF3 tornado. This is the one that we showed you as breaking news last night. If you were watching, we had those live pictures in the minutes after the tornado hit. This is it now. About 24 hours later in the light of day, you can see demolished homes and businesses, shredded trees, smashed cars. There's a curfew in place in Greenfield overnight, and the sheriff says it could last, in his words, for some time. Officials say multiple people are dead. We don't know exactly how many yet. Some others are hurt. Again, the numbers are still TBD. We've got our teams covering this from every angle. Shaq Brewster on the ground in Iowa. But I want to start first, given that tornado that just hit Texas, with meteorologist Bill Cairns. Is it still on the ground, Bill? What do we know?
There's still a tornado warning for it. Actually, just a second ago, it just was dropped. So here's what we know. So let me familiarize you where you are here. First, the Dallas, here's Fort Worth, heading out on 20 to Abilene, south of there down to San Angelo. Law enforcement about 15, 20 minutes ago reported a large tornado on the ground, a strong tornado too, and that's why we have this little red icon here. It looks like it has just fallen apart a little bit, but this is still a supercell thunderstorm. You can still see what we call the hook echo on it, and at any point, this could once again produce a tornado. And the reason of concern with this, and I should mention, this is out over an open area. No damage has been reported from this right now, but you can see where San Angelo is here, the city, and this is heading in your general direction. San Angelo is under a severe thunderstorm warning, and we'll have to wait and see if this does produce a tornado again as it heads in your general direction. There's no reason why it couldn't, so that's why we have to watch it closely. Dallas, you've avoided most of the big thunderstorms to your north. We've had a lot of flash flooding from Plano heading towards Greenville. Now a severe thunderstorm warning for some hail there. I want to take you all the way to Kentucky. We got a state of emergency in Raceland, Kentucky. This is the Ohio River just to the north here. They had a big windstorm go through, and they're telling everyone to stay out of the town. They have power lines and trees down all over the place. So we are widespread today. That swath goes all the way from western New York through Kentucky back down into Texas, as we showed you. And we do have that threat of tornadoes. We showed you the one that we just saw. But even as we go through the afternoon and evening here in East Texas all the way into Arkansas, that's where we have additional threats, Hallie. So tornado watch until 8 o'clock for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, all the way back towards San Angelo. I'll keep you updated on that storm as it does approach the city of San Angelo over the next hour.
That's going to be critical. Bill Cairns, thank you. A very active situation that you are tracking now. Shaq Brewster, where you are, less active as it relates to the storms, but extremely when it comes to the cleanup. People trying to figure out where they go next after those devastating twisters came through.
Right, Hallie. You heard Bill talk through the threat of tornadoes. Well, we're seeing here the impact of the tornadoes that came through just last night. You know, the damage that you see here in Greenfield is so widespread that we're not even able to be in that town right now. Law enforcement keeping us at this command center. But just look at this video that our team shot throughout the day. We went through the town with a police escort. We saw homes completely removed from their foundation, cars under homes, cars on top of homes. The destruction was so widespread, Hallie. And there was one woman who I talked to, a 77-year-old woman who I met, who said that she got a call from her daughter who said, "You need to go to the basement right now." In true Iowa fashion, she actually went outside instead, looked up, heard the whistle, heard a tornado coming, heard what sounded like a tornado coming, went to her basement. Listen to the rest of what she told me.
Went to the basement and no more got in the bathroom and pulled me right out, and everything was on top of me.
How long were you stuck under your house?
About 45 minutes.
You were confident somebody was coming?
Somebody was coming.
Why were you so confident?
We're a small town and we all help each other out. I'm glad to be alive.
She told me that as she was under that, or in that basement under her home, she was screaming out at one point because she heard people from the outside looking for her, and it took 45 minutes for both family and rescue workers to come and ultimately save her. Hallie, this was just one of the systems of nearly 24 reported tornadoes, most of them happening in Iowa, but also impacting some neighboring states, looking at Nebraska, Wisconsin. This is a major system that is still part of that system that is wreaking havoc on the East Coast or eastern area of the country at this point, as you heard Bill describe.
Shaq, we also talked about that mandatory curfew that's in place. I assume that the town communities nearby have shelters set up because people need somewhere to go.
Yeah, shelters in the area high school, but get this, that high school is also acting as a triage center, also acting as a makeshift hospital because the one major hospital here also sustained damage in that tornado. This is a town of just about 2,000 people, so when you have a tornado like Bill was saying, that's at least the EF3, it had winds that exceeded 150 miles an hour, you can imagine the impact that it's had on so many families, so many residents, so many people here needing help, not just for the days, but likely the weeks and months to come, Hallie.
Images are still just tough to look at. Shaq Brewster, thank you very much for being there. We'll look for any updates from you throughout the night. In just the last few hours, parents of the 19 students killed at the Uvalde, Texas Elementary School are announcing a new lawsuit against nearly 100 officers who they say did not adequately respond to a mass shooting. I want to show you the father of 9-year-old Jackie Cazares there, saying something has got to change.
Justice and accountability has always been my main concern. We've been let down so many times. The time has come to do the right thing.
Remember, nearly 400 officers, local, state, federal, showed up to that scene, but it took 77 minutes. 77 minutes before any of them went into the classroom where the shooter had kids trapped. In the words of the Justice Department, cascading failures. Kids calling 911, body cam video that reveals officers heard the shots but did not go inside. The attack left 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers dead, marking 2 years since that horrific day on Friday. Guad Venegas is joining us now. And Guad, you can hear the agony 2 years later in the voice of that father. And to date, to be clear, still no criminal charges against any law enforcement officer. Talk about the aims, the goals of this lawsuit, because the parents say it is about accountability.
That's exactly what they mentioned, Hallie. The attorney representing the family says officers who were there need to be held responsible for the actions that they took that day. Now, this all comes after a Department of Justice review of what happened. That review indicating that unprecedented failures enabled the killing of teachers and students that day. So we now have this legal action in which they are suing 92 officers from the Department of Public Safety. These are state troopers. Now, there were hundreds of officers that responded that day, local, federal, and state troopers, but they are focusing on those DPS officers who they say failed to follow their training to confront the active shooter. Now, that lawsuit also names the Uvalde School District, the principal of Robb Elementary, as well as Chief Pete Arredondo, who is no longer the chief of the school district police. He was fired, and there's been another chief in place, but these are the ones that are being mentioned. Once again, what they want is to hold those responsible accountable for what happened, Hallie.
Guad, there was, in the words of one attorney who spoke, one silver lining, basically one ray of sunshine that they talked about, and that's a settlement that happened. Explain that.
Right. So the lawsuit is going against the state, right? They're suing DPS officers, and they do mention the school district. But what they want to focus on now is building that bond between the city of Uvalde and the victims' family members. So they've announced that the city of Uvalde and the families have agreed on a $2 million settlement that will go to the families of the victims. Now, the attorney says they agreed on that number because they didn't want the city to go bankrupt. They have to continue to live in Uvalde, and the city government has to work with them. Now, that also includes other agreements that include creating a commission that will overlook the creation of a memorial and other things. Here's the attorney speaking about the settlement today.
They love you, they love living here, and they want to stay here. They want to stay here, and they need you. And when you see them on the street, if you pass them on the street, you know, you don't have to look away, even if you wear a badge.
And that's the attorney speaking today. Now, another thing that is very interesting, Hallie, is that there was an issue with the gravesites of the victims. And so they are also creating a commission of individuals that will overlook the maintenance of those gravesites, because the attorney said the families went through a very difficult time because the city wasn't working with them with the money they spent on those gravesites. Well, all of this just part of that settlement that they hope will bond the city and the victims of the family members of these victims as they move forward, Hallie.
And we should note here, Guad, no response from DPS yet on this lawsuit filed by the families. I know you'll be watching for that. Guad Venegas, just a very emotional day in Texas. Thank you. To Pennsylvania now, in shock tonight in one town as a suspected shooter's in custody after killing 2 people and hurting 3 others in a workplace shooting right outside of Philly. The suspect's being described as a disgruntled former employee. Officials say they opened fire early this morning inside and outside a linen rental and laundry business. No ID on the shooter, no concrete motive at this point, but Erin McLaughlin has made her way there. She's joining us now. What do we know?
Hey, Hallie. Well, I was just speaking with a local resident who says he was home in this area at the time of the shooting. He said it was around 8:30 in the morning. He heard multiple shots fired. He says he immediately called 911, reporting the shooting to authorities, dispatch telling him to stay inside of his home. Now, we understand from authorities 5 people were shot in total. 2 were killed, including 2 were killed, as well as 3 other individuals who were taken for treatment to a local hospital. Authorities say the suspect did manage to flee the scene and was arrested in a nearby city. Authorities calling the shooting a tragedy. Take a listen.
The information I have right now is the employee had some issues with fellow employees, but nothing that would lead to what happened today. I mean, this is just everyone's worst nightmare. Another example of somebody who had access to a firearm who shouldn't have, and took out whatever anger he had for whatever reason on the employees of this poor business.
Now, no comment so far from the family-owned business. It is a linen and laundry business here, serving businesses in the Chester area. Authorities say they have yet to establish a motive. That is still very much a subject of this ongoing investigation. They have not released the names of the shooters, nor have they released the names of the victims. It is worth noting that this is the 169th mass shooting in the United States just this year, and local authorities now calling for change. Hallie.
Erin, thank you very much. Live for us there just outside Philly. To Washington now, and the national conversation on reproductive rights front and center yet again, as just a few blocks from where I'm sitting, Democrats on Capitol Hill in the Senate are looking to force a vote next month to try to federally codify the right to birth control. In other words, to protect the right to contraceptive access under federal law. Senator Chuck Schumer rolling this out today. Watch.
Senate Democrats are committed to restoring women's freedoms and will fight to protect access to contraception, and other reproductive freedoms that are essential safeguards for millions of women to control their own lives, their futures, and their bodies.
So read between the lines here, right? Democrats are essentially looking to put Republicans on the spot, highlight GOP divisions on reproductive rights, all as part of an election year strategy. Some in the GOP on the Senate side dismissing this as a stunt. But it comes just after this guy here, the presumptive Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump, talked about what he might or might not do on contraceptives. We told you about this 24 hours ago. Let me remind you.
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting.
So he said he was looking at a policy on contraceptives. He cleaned that up just hours later online, writing on Truth Social that he has never and will never advocate for restrictions on birth control. He says no ban. All of this coming as we are seeing a spotlight now on reproductive rights, broadly, abortion access specifically. Just yesterday, we told you how the Louisiana House passed that bill that would criminalize abortion pills, 2 of them specifically, by reclassifying them as controlled dangerous substances. Of course, criminalizing possession for anybody without a valid prescription. That bill is now headed to the state Senate, where it's expected to pass. Sahil Kapoor is joining us now. Interesting move by the Dems here, Sahil, because we know that the Biden campaign, Democrats more broadly, want to see reproductive rights front and center. You've got Chuck Schumer now talking about access to birth control, which is broadly supported. It is widely popular across the political spectrum. Polling shows that something like 80% plus of people of all political stripes believe that people should have access to birth control. This is meant to put Republicans into kind of a political jam.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hallie. The bill is called the Right to Contraception Act. It would establish federal rights in all 50 states to contraception. It would prohibit states from making laws that tinker with that right, that would prohibit states from basically making laws that would restrict the sale or use of contraception. Senate Republicans now say this is unnecessary. They say they have no problem with contraception, and they accuse Senator Schumer and Democrats of making a political move ahead of an election year where some of them argue that he is nervous about maintaining his majority. Let's play what a couple of Republican senators had to say.
He's going to do these sort of political messaging bills because he knows he's underwater in a couple of states, and he's trying to create a political foothold for some of his incumbents.
It doesn't seem necessary to me. I think Republicans do support that. Yeah. I'm not sure why you need to put a bill on the floor.
Now, of course, this bill is going to need 60 votes in the Senate to break a filibuster. That means either 9 Republicans support it and move it forward, or Democrats can point to these Republicans and say, hey, they don't even support a right to contraception. This is standard politics, Hallie. As you know, the majority party in the Senate frequently tries to find issues that unify their party, where the public is on their side, that divide the other party. And let's show some data. A recent Navigator poll just shows how overwhelmingly popular the issue of contraception is. It finds that 74% believe it should be easier to access. You don't find those kinds of numbers very often. And 16% say fine as it is. The numbers who are not sure or want contraception to be more difficult to access are 5% each, pretty measly. This is a poll taken earlier in February. Yeah. This is what Democrats are after: force Republicans to either support the bill or make them pay politically for refusing to.
As it relates to former President Trump, on this particular issue, he said, you'll be hearing about my policy on contraceptions, and then just a couple hours later posted on Truth Social he did not support a birth control ban. But on other issues, he has not, in fact, materialized with a policy as he has said he would, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Trump has really struggled with this issue. I mean, he is the de facto leader of a conservative movement that opposes abortion rights and has complicated views on issues like IVF and contraception. Let's show a timeline here of some of his recent positions. He's talked about birth control access, said he's going to have a policy on that very soon. Mifepristone said he'll be doing it over the next week or two. It's been well over a week or two. He hasn't had it. And on down the list on abortion as well. He's gone back and forth on this. Regardless, his record, Hallie, is very clear. He has taken federal executive actions to restrict abortion rights. He has chosen the 3 justices on the Supreme Court who are instrumental in overturning Roe v. Wade. That's what you're going to hear Democrats focus on as Trump tries to figure out how he wants to present himself.
Sahil Kapoor live for us on the Hill. Thank you. Just down Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House not too long ago, just in the last few minutes, actually, President Biden wrapped up a meeting with Kenya's president, the first leader of an African nation to come for a state visit since 2008. Here's the president.
Today, as we honor 60 years of ties between our countries, it's clear that our people are the true strength of this partnership and a partnership that's working well.
It comes as Kenya is set to lead a big multinational push, sending about 1,000 of its own police officers to Haiti to try to bring some peace there after months of violence, unrest, chaos. But the whole thing could get delayed, partly because of a new fight in Congress over how much the U.S. should pay for it. Here's Gabe Gutierrez.
With armed gangs tightening their grip on Haiti. Late today, William Ruto, the president of Kenya, arrived at the White House for a state visit. His country is getting ready to send police to stabilize Haiti, part of a larger UN effort.
Kenya has worked side by side with the United States to tackle some of the most significant challenges of our time.
The UN says more than 1,500 people have been killed in Haiti this year. No elections for years, violent protests, and a mass prison break, forcing its prime minister to resign, and prompting dramatic rescues of Americans trapped in and around the capital, Port-au-Prince, which is mostly controlled by gangs led by a former police officer nicknamed Barbecue. Some gang members are suspected of having ties to the assassination of Haiti's president in 2021. We reported from the neighboring Dominican Republic on the hundreds of Americans evacuated from Haiti this year.
The UN just announcing that it's launching an air bridge, essentially a humanitarian corridor in the sky to bring over humanitarian aid.
The Biden administration planned to set aside $300 million to help the Kenyan-led multinational security force, which was expected to deploy police to Haiti this week, although a U.S. official now tells NBC News the timing is still up in the air. The procurement of more equipment, including armored vehicles and radios, is expected by the end of the month.
Haiti's on the precipice of becoming an all-out failed state.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken testified on Capitol Hill Tuesday as top Republicans try to block more money that the Biden administration says is necessary to help Haiti. House Foreign Affairs Chair Michael McCaul and Senate Foreign Relations Ranking Member Jim Risch are blasting the White House for approving a $60 million military aid package last month. Writing in a letter to Blinken, the administration is rushing to fund an undefined and indefinite engagement in Haiti without congressional approval.
You know, I know some people have concerns about the United States being the quote-unquote policeman of the world. Well, here's a situation where Kenya and a number of other countries have stepped up and are willing to take this on, but they need support.
Gabe Gutierrez is joining us here now on set. Gabe, how is it that Kenya ended up taking the lead on this front? You mentioned there's a lot of countries involved.
Oh, yeah, Hallie. So the UN Security Council voted to put this together last year, and it's actually Kenya's president who volunteered for this. But there's actually been a lot of pushback, Hallie, inside the country. Some critics in Parliament don't think it's a good idea. They're accusing the president of doing it for financial gain. So there's a lot of internal pushback there. But as for the U.S. has been very clear that they don't want to contribute troops, their own troops, but they have really been one of the primary backers for this financially.
Other countries have tried to step in before. That hasn't worked. What makes people think this time could be any different?
Well, that is a big question, isn't it? I mean, the U.S. involved in the 90s when Jean-Bertrand Aristide, you know, the U.S. tried to get this under control. It happened again in 2000 and 2000s. The UN sent in a peacekeeping force as well that left in 2017. Nothing has changed. Haiti has still faced a multitude of problems. And this time it will be police sent in from Kenya. We understand that they've been taking French lessons, that they've been training the last couple of months. But a question becomes, one, how much is this going to cost? And will the U.S. eventually need to get dragged into this because there are so many problems in Haiti? And really, the gangs control about 80% of Port-au-Prince. The airport just reopened just a few days ago. But there's a lot of questions about moving forward, how much the U.S. will have to get involved here.
It's an important story, Gabe. I'm glad you're staying on top of it from the ground here in Washington. Thank you very much for being with us. So the company responsible for most of the computing power behind the big AI boom, NVIDIA, is just announcing some huge, big numbers, crazy big numbers in its earnings report. Look at this. Sales are up nearly 300%, more than $26 billion for the quarter as far as revenue. That's more than $1 billion more than expected. NVIDIA has been on a total tear. Its stock has gone up 200% over the past year. The whole stock market, I mean, that's really what's driven a lot of the stock market to some of these record highs. All of it on the back of NVIDIA's dominance in making those super advanced microchips that power AI. The company's basically a one-stop shop for everything from Amazon to Google to Microsoft, basically everything AI. Investopedia's Caleb Silver is joining us now. So perhaps no surprise that it does have this gangbusters earnings report, right?
Yeah, it is in the sweet spot. There are story stocks, and we all know them from the past, Apple, Amazon, Google. And then there's NVIDIA, which has really dominated making these microprocessors, these semiconductors, to power AI, to power gaming. It has been the company in the middle of it all, and it has generated amazing returns. You talked about a 200% return in the stock in the past year. How about 2,350% over the past 5 years? And it's still growing, and it's telling us through this earnings report and past earnings reports that the appetite for AI is real, and it's going to last several years. This is not a flash-in-the-pan technology. This is something that's going to be with us for a while, and this is the company that is supplying the microchips that make it all happen.
Why is it that NVIDIA has such a big lead over its competitors? I mean, it feels almost insurmountable at this point. I'm sure the competitors would disagree, but what about these other chip makers?
Yeah, the other chip makers have been trying, and those are the AMDs of the world, and they make great chips as well. But NVIDIA was early to the market. They've been early to every market they've been in, and this is not a Silicon Valley company that just popped up out of nowhere. It's been around since 1993, led by Jensen Huang, who is kind of a celebrity CEO. You showed him earlier in the leather jacket. He is worshipped around Wall Street and around Silicon Valley because they get to these markets early, whether it's gaming or supplying chips for mining cryptocurrency, and now supplying the chips for AI, for ChatGPT, Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, the biggest companies in the world. NVIDIA is right in the middle of it, and shareholders love this company.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Some new CNBC reporting today says Amazon's planning to revamp Alexa as they're trying to compete with the next generation, speaking of AI chatbots like this one.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. It's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice.
That's the new update from ChatGPT we've talked about that got OpenAI into some hot water for sounding too much like Scarlett Johansson. But it can also do things like if you're like, well, wait a second, how did it see that guy's hoodie? It can see things through a phone's camera. It can hold full conversations with users. So this Alexa revamp from Amazon is kind of Amazon starting to answer, but we might have to pay to see it, with sources telling CNBC the company is going to charge extra to experience the new stuff. Kate Rooney broke that story for CNBC. She is joining us now from CNBC's San Francisco bureau. Kate, it's good to see you. Alexa is 10 years old, I think, this year. It was like the thing, the hot thing. Everybody loved it. Now, kind of the grandma of the bunch. How did that happen?
Totally, Hallie. That's so ironic. It's interesting you say that. You think of how impressive this product was in 2014 and how blown away consumers were and how popular this was. If you flash forward to today, and you described it in your intro really well, those devices from OpenAI and from Google are a lot smarter. So the technology has come a long way in the past decade. Alexa's really built on sort of the old school version of AI. Generative AI tends to go a lot deeper. It's much more creative, and you can have these two-way conversations. That right now, the way Alexa's built and was designed, they poured billions of dollars into the old way of doing things, and it's going to take a long time to kind of turn that ship around, but they are very much in the process of doing that. This was also Jeff Bezos' passion project. People I was talking to that used to work in the Alexa division told me he loved this product. He really wanted to pour money and resources into it. And then the new CEO, Andy Jassy, is a little bit more disciplined on the cost side, isn't a founder, so isn't going to take those big swings. And they've been a little bit more sober when it comes to spending on it.
But what you're talking about, the way that Alexa sort of is this big behemoth, if you will, can also work to Amazon's advantage, and that millions of people already have Alexas, right? I mean, that's something that works in Amazon's favor.
Yeah, there's 500 million Alexa-enabled devices out there. So engineers you talk to say that's a massive advantage. You've got it in people's homes. They trust it to a certain extent, and they're going to use it. But that can also mean that the bar is higher. So if you think about, we've talked about ChatGPT and what Google's done, those are also known for making mistakes. If you say, Alexa, open my garage door, and it turns on your stove, that was one example an engineer gave, the bar is so much higher. So they need to make sure that when they do roll this out, that it works flawlessly. So that is one thing that they're working against. And then it's just a hard thing to do. Engineering talent is scarce in Silicon Valley and these big tech companies. Somebody described it to me as finding an NFL quarterback, finding one of these engineers. They're very rare. They're well paid. And so Amazon's got to find the smartest minds to kind of take it into this new generation of AI and make Alexa something that we're going to want to use for something other than, a kitchen time or just telling you what the weather is.
Yeah, or the kids' songs or whatever it is. Kate Rooney, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Coming up, we got some breaking news out of the campaign trail. Guess who Nikki Haley says she's going to vote for come November? We got that. Wait till you hear it. It's coming up in a sec. Plus, a judge pressing pause on the sale of Graceland. What comes next in Elvis's granddaughter's fight? A little bit of breaking news from the campaign trail with former President Trump's biggest former competitor for the Republican nomination, Nikki Haley, sharing who she plans to vote for in November. Listen.
Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump.
Vaughn Hilliard is joining us now. Vaughn, I'm old enough to remember when Nikki Haley was warning of the dangers of a Donald Trump presidency after 2024. It was not a foregone conclusion that she would come to this decision. What changed?
For Nikki Haley, I think a lot of this is, a similar story to 8 years ago, right? She compared Donald Trump back during the 2016 campaign to a kindergartner, and she ended up working for his presidential administration as a UN ambassador. And then on January 6th, she called it an ugly day and said those who broke the law should be punished, right? But then she ended up coming back around to Donald Trump, and she then announced that she was going to run for the presidency herself and try to primary challenge him. And there was a lot of tension during the course of that primary campaign. Her husband was deployed to Africa, and Donald Trump made some comments about him, and she was quite explicit at the time, calling the comments disgusting, awful, unhinged, that someone that makes such comments doesn't deserve to be commander-in-chief. She even went on to say, quote, the most harm he's ever come across is whether a golf ball hits him on a golf cart. These were very tough words that went from Nikki Haley to Donald Trump, yet she finds herself in a position of not having a clear political future. And she, during these remarks here, said that Joe Biden's administration has been a catastrophe. And so in a 1 versus 1 option, she chose to go with Donald Trump.
She also said that Donald Trump would be smart to reach out, I'm quoting here, to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me and not just assume that they're going to be with him. I wonder, I know I don't know yet because she literally just said this like 90 seconds ago, but I wonder if we will actually see Donald Trump do that, considering that to this point, his attitude has largely been, and I'm sort of paraphrasing it here, like, hey, you're in or you're out. Like here, right. It's this or nothing.
Twofold. Most of the time, Donald Trump is eager to welcome anybody back into the fray, no matter how big of enemies they once were. He welcomes anybody coming and essentially kissing the ring. But then on the other hand of this is that Nikki Haley was somebody who just 2 weeks ago, he was very explicit, saying that she would not be under consideration for the vice presidency. A lot of his very close allies are very reticent to Nikki Haley and do not trust her. And so for Donald Trump, he is largely looking at this campaign as one where they believe they can rely on the base of support, and they don't necessarily need to meet those independents or reticent conservatives who willfully voted for Donald or for Joe Biden in the past. But instead, if they can juice their own support, they don't need to try to win over the support of Nikki Haley type voters, because they believe that they have enough other type of Trump voters around the country to make up for those that they may lose that are more consider themselves like Nikki Haley voters, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard, lots to watch on the campaign trail today. Thank you so much. That brings us to tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching, the divided states of America, our special series this election year. And tonight takes us out west to Idaho, where red state realtors are finding plenty of reasons for relocation. On the road outside Boise,
it's the second largest city in Idaho.
A tour from 2 transplants. Do you regret your decision at all to move from Seattle?
Not one iota.
So Jason and Kelly Krafsky moved to Idaho from Washington State 2.5 years ago.
The elephant in the room is that for political reasons. I mean, we're more red than blue, especially during the lockdown, was just...
Well, that's when it really kind of hit us.
It got really egregious.
The people are great here.
They liked it so much, they moved their careers here, too. They're both realtors on a mission.
We just decided that was going to be our new business model, which is, help people transplant from Washington or California or Oregon here to the Boise area. Because we did it, and we know how hard it is.
How's that business been?
Very, very good. You can canoe. You can
Some clients coming to them through a group called Conservative Move, which provides resources to help people relocate somewhere redder. Idaho's one of the fastest growing states in the country, behind only Florida last year. And part of the draw for some, not just the panoramas, but the politics. More places now are either way more red or way more blue than they used to be, according to presidential election data. Back in 2004, fewer than 200 counties voted in big blowouts, a landslide one way or the other. But in 2020, that number tripled to nearly 700, including some counties in Texas. That state's where Kirby Wilbur calls himself a refugee resettlement specialist.
We're conservative, and I think if you're moving and going through this trauma, it helps to have someone who understands you and agrees with you and is able to help you because they've been through the same process.
People like Emma and Matthew Carruthers, who considered Tennessee, too, before settling just outside Dallas.
Kirby knew what we were looking for, and not just because he knows us, but he knows kind of the environment that we're looking for.
At the end of the day, we did it for our kids, for a better life for them.
It works both ways, with some agents aiming to help more liberal homeowners leave conservative states. For Wilbur, it's simple. People who know what they like should like where they live.
Texas isn't perfect, but if I may paraphrase Ronald Reagan, it's not heaven, but it's in the same zip code.
So that group, Conservative Move, says in the last couple of years, South Carolina has joined Texas and Florida as some of the biggest states where they're seeing clients buying homes. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, Capitol Police temporarily locking down the RNC headquarters in Washington today. The Republican National Committee, after somebody apparently sent vials of blood to the building, according to 3 sources familiar with that situation. Capitol Police say they're investigating. No word yet if a suspect's in custody. Number 2, an LA judge today delaying the start of Hunter Biden's trial on tax charges until September. It was supposed to be early June, but his attorneys argue they wouldn't have time to prepare for 2 federal trials in the same month. Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty. Number 3, the Prime Minister of the UK today calling for a new general election July 4th that'll determine who governs the UK. Rishi Sunak was required to hold a vote by January. It comes as his Conservative Party looks likely to lose power after 14 years. Number 4, a big legal win today for Elvis Presley's family, with a judge in Tennessee blocking the foreclosure sale of Graceland. Remember, we told you about this yesterday. Presley's granddaughter has been fighting to stop what she says is a fraudulent scheme to auction the property. Number 5, Fleet Week in New York, 36th annual. You see the parade of ships here sailing up the Hudson River past the Statue of Liberty and the Freedom Tower. The ships are going to be docked around New York City with public tours available through Memorial Day. To an NBC News exclusive now on the White House's plans to move 11 detainees out of Guantanamo Bay into a facility in the Middle East back in October. But the plan abruptly called off at the last minute by the Biden administration, apparently because of concerns about optics after Hamas attacked Israel, according to 4 U.S. officials familiar with the matter. Now, more than 7 months later, still no date for that transfer to actually happen. Some officials tell NBC News they're frustrated. They think election year politics could be behind the delay and the White House's bigger push to close the Cuban detention facility. I want to bring in Courtney Kuby, who, along with our Kara Lee, is behind this reporting. The latest example here of politics influencing policy. And this story, I know, is months in the making. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we were actually tracking this potential transfer of these Yemeni men. Now, of course, you know, they were all from Yemen. They'd been at Guantanamo Bay for years, never charged with a crime, all cleared for release, some for years cleared for release. But because they were from Yemen, the U.S. had a difficult decision and task ahead to figure out where to send them. They couldn't send them back to a war-torn country that, frankly, has only gotten worse in the last few months with the attacks with the Houthis. So it took years for the Biden administration to figure out where to send them. They came to an agreement over months with Oman as part of this sort of rehabilitation program. They had hours and hours of meetings to figure out security guarantees, but they were right at that last step, Hallie, in October. These men were prepared to leave. They were planning to go to Oman. And then at the last minute, the deal was all halted. Now we have spent months trying to figure out exactly why, and we have been told, according to these 4 officials familiar, that in fact it was politics. A number of Biden administration allies, mainly Democrats on Capitol Hill, told the White House the optics were too bad, that they should not go through with this because it was right after the attack on October 7th, and they were concerned that it would make the White House look weak. Now, since then, we have been tracking this, trying to figure out exactly when the men would be released. It's now been 8 months. They are still sitting here, and officials tell us that there has been some frustration over it. The biggest concern right now is if they aren't transferred and Donald Trump is reelected president, given his history, it's possible they will sit in that detention center for another 4 years, Hallie.
Also worth remembering that the issue of Guantanamo, what to do with it, whether to move prisoners out, how to handle it, has been a flashpoint in multiple presidential administrations.
Exactly. And remember, this administration has been trying to close Guantanamo. They're not the first one to do so. This would have made a really dramatic dent in the population. They would have gone for the first time in years below 20 people. And officials say they are still working on additional transfers after this. But at this point, it's not clear if or when these men will actually make their way to Oman.
Courtney Kuby, live for us there at the Pentagon Court. Thank you so much for bringing us that important reporting. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, big crane catching on fire in New Jersey. Look at all that smoke. Officials think this was an electrical fire. They say it didn't spread to a ship nearby or anything else, fortunately. Nobody was hurt, and firefighters did manage to get it under control. Out of our Western Bureau, a big fight brewing in one neighborhood in California, where some folks are parking RVs right near houses and living in them. Homeowners in one part of Fremont say the RV's generators are creating issues for them. Their health, the noise, the toxic fumes, etc. People in the RVs say they're just trying to get by in a city and a neighborhood where the cost of living is really expensive. And back out of our Northeast Bureau, the NFL today announcing that Pittsburgh will host the 2026 draft. The Steelers owner thinks it'll be, I'm quoting here, the largest visitor event in the history of the city. It comes after this year's record-breaking NFL draft when more than 775,000 fans showed up in Detroit for it. Still ahead, inside the Wild West of million-dollar deals for college football players, why one star QB is suing a power conference coach. Coming up. In just the last hour or so, we're hearing from the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs about those controversial comments by his kicker, Harrison Butker. Remember, Butker caught the country's attention with his commencement speech at a Catholic college, where he talked about his, in his words, traditional views about women, the LGBTQ+ community, and abortion, with his head coach, Andy Reid, defending the right to make those comments.
We all respect each other's, opinions, and not necessarily do we go by those, but we respect everybody to have a voice. It's a great thing about America, man.
Maura Barrett is joining us now. Interestingly, we also heard from Patrick Mahomes, of course, the star quarterback's kind of the face of the NFL, at least one of them, and he seemed to be putting a bit more distance between himself and Butker. Fair?
Yeah, Hallie, and remember, this is the first time we're hearing any reaction from Harrison Butker's teammates, and that's after we saw a lot of reaction from fans and online in the last week and a half since the commencement speech. And Mahomes went on to point out that he's known Butker for about 7 years now, but in the locker room, when they're all teammates, there's a lot of differing values, and they respect each other, but they also, he recognizes that they have different opinions on this. And so I wanted to hear some of what he responded to when asked about his reaction to Butker's commencement speech today.
There's certain things that he said that I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand the person that he is, and he's trying to do whatever he can to lead people in the right direction. And that might not be the same values as I have, but at the same time, I'm going to judge him by the character that he shows every single day, and that's a great person.
And so we heard from both Mahomes and Reid expressing frustration about these off-field distractions, as they put it, during the offseason, appearing to refer to the commencement address, but also potentially wide receiver Rashee Rice's drama around those charges he's facing on that 6-car collision in Dallas, also that alleged nightclub assault. And so that's something that they say they need to work together towards as a team and learn from that. But either way, a lot of attention on the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Also important to point out, we haven't seen any reaction yet from Butker's teammate's girlfriend, as he put it, as we all know her as Taylor Swift. Nothing from Travis Kelce as of yet either. Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We are getting a never-before-seen look into the wild west of new money rules, or the lack of them, in college sports, with a new lawsuit against the head football coach at the University of Florida from a quarterback who says he got screwed out of millions of dollars. We're talking about Jaden Rashada. According to court documents obtained by our team, Rashada's lawyers say, quote, false and fraudulent promises by the Florida head coach, Billy Napier, a former staffer and a big-time booster at UF, made him change his college commitments. So here's the deal. Rashada says he had this $9.5 million deal lined up in 2022 from boosters at the University of Miami. That's a big rival to Florida. But Rashada's lawyers say then he flipped to UF because the coach and booster dangled a deal worth nearly $14 million. To put it in context, the top quarterback in that year's NFL draft, Kenny Pickett, had a nearly identical rookie deal. This one's for a kid who was still in high school at the time. Rashada says Napier personally promised he'd get $1 million the day he committed. Rashada says that never happened. To be clear, the University of Florida and its athletic association are not parties in this lawsuit. NBC News has reached out to Napier for comment and has not heard back. Morgan Chesky is all over this one for us. Here's the bottom line of it all, right? The idea that this whole thing is exposing what is a very big gray area in this new world of college sports. Like the school's coach is getting sued, but the school's, not really sort of a part of this. How does this make sense?
Hallie, that is an incredibly good question here, and I think it all goes to show just how much of a gray area exists right now when it comes to collegiate athletics. In this specific case, you have the coach being sued, but not the school, because the parties that were trying to set up this NIL deal were specifically separate from the university itself, including Coach Napier, as mentioned in that lawsuit, also mentioning that booster, who's a multi-millionaire, funding a large portion of this payment, and then a now defunct organization that works to kind of gather donor money to then funnel into these NIL deals. So that is why you kind of have this layer of separation here, seeing UF distancing themselves right now. I do want to share with you a statement from the attorney for Jaden Rashada, Rusty Hardin, saying, sadly, unethical and illegal tactics like this are more and more commonplace in the Wild West that is today's college football landscape. As the first scholar athlete to take a stand against such egregious behavior by adults who should know better, Jaden seeks to hold defendants accountable for their actions and to expose the unchecked abuse of power that they shamelessly wielded. Strong words there, but this does go to show, Hallie, how much this is evolving in real time here as they try to put some of these laws into place when they see the need. Here's what a sports law expert has to say about this. Take a listen.
So there's this vacuum where athletes as recruits understandably want to maximize their market value, but they're doing so in a world where the law isn't playing a big role. And as a result, there are misunderstandings, there are maybe reneged promises.
Multi-million-dollar misunderstandings. So where do things go from here remains to say. The defendant's staying relatively quiet right now, Hallie, but there is a lot of intricacies tucked within this lawsuit, a kind of word-of-mouth promises that may not have been explicitly written down, and it's going to be very interesting to see how much of this holds up in a court of law, seeing as that Jaden is the first one to do this. Hallie?
He's good, obviously, and people who know more about college football than I do will say that he is good, but he is not necessarily like the biggest superstar in college football right now, which makes you think, okay, well, what about for those biggest of the big names, right? Like, what does this mean for them?
I think a lot of people are definitely going to be watching and waiting to see how this plays out, and it could set a precedent for a formality in how these NIL deals are introduced and put in place. Of course, everyone's trying to get those top athletes. We do know that, while he hasn't been necessarily name recognition as other college superstars, he is a strong quarterback in his own right, and we know that Rashada was the top-rated QB in the transfer portal. He, of course, leaves Florida to go to Arizona State, where over the last year he had, 485 passing yards, 4 TDs, 3 interceptions there, Hallie, but he was injured in the second game, didn't come back towards the end of the season here. So there's a lot of potential here that I think schools were betting on when they looked at Rashada, and that's why I think you saw that much money in play, and that's why we're going to have so many eyes on this going forward as well.
Totally. It's super fascinating. Morgan Chesky, thank you for breaking it down. I appreciate it. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air tonight with devastating storms slamming states from New York to Texas, where a big and possibly dangerous tornado has just touched down in the last hour or so. And we're watching for more baseball-sized hail. Torrential flash floods may be on the way, less than 24 hours after deadly twisters tore through Iowa. People there bracing for what's next. We'll take you live to the ground. Plus, the breaking news just into us from the campaign trail. Nikki Haley revealing who she will vote for come November, and the answer may surprise you. Then a rare meeting just wrapping up at the White House between President Biden and the president of Kenya as part of a big push to bring more police into Haiti. Why all of it could end up derailed unless Congress gets on board. Plus, the gangbusters' new numbers just in from the company commanding the AI boom. Wait till you hear about their earnings. And does Amazon's new AI push mean an overhaul for your Alexa? Sure looks like it. We'll explain later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and as we come on the air tonight, we are seeing very intense and potentially very dangerous weather for millions of people, including a big tornado in a rural part of Texas and some flooding reported in Tennessee. This comes just 24 hours after we showed you live on this show the devastation in parts of Iowa after tornadoes touched down there. Look at some of the video that we're just getting in from Arkansas. You can see how windy it is. All that stuff on the ground bouncing around, that's hail. And then look at this out of Texas. You can see how fast the wind is moving. It is just whipping that rain sideways. You can see some of the lightning flashing in the sky. We're learning tomorrow in Texas, FEMA will talk about the damage there with search and rescue teams on the ground after this scene out of Iowa. Horrific to look at. This is drone video now in the town of Greenfield. That's that live shot we had for you last night. People's lives literally ripped apart by what officials now think was at least an EF3 tornado. There's a curfew in place for that area overnight, and the sheriff says it could last for some time. Officials say multiple people are dead. We do not know the exact number. We do know others were hurt. We've got our team covering this from every angle. Maggie Vespa on the ground in Iowa, meteorologist Bill Karen standing by. And Maggie, I want to start with you and what it's like where you are. People just reeling, I imagine.
Hallie, people are reeling, and so much so that they're still in what they call search and rescue mode, even though first responders and officials tell us, as you said, multiple people are dead, but they're going house to house, block to block in Greenfield. To that end, the town has been closed all day. We've been kept out all day with the exception of one police escort that was brief. So we're near where the debris was thrown outside of town. We're told by people some debris was thrown as far as 30 miles from where it was picked up by these tornadoes. It's just been insane. You talked about the fact that it might be, or they now believe it's at least an EF3 tornado. It could be higher. An EF3, for reference, has max wind speeds of 165 miles per hour. So this was incredibly powerful, to say the least. We talked to several people who live in town today, including Donna Pruitt. I was speaking to her about just kind of the information they're getting from public officials, including the latest info on those deaths. This was part of our exchange today. Take a listen.
You believe multiple neighbors of yours were killed?
They were. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right here, we're just going through the motions. You know, like I said, just picking up stuff that here's our bathtub. Our refrigerator is over there. This little gray car is our car.
Yeah, she was so numb to this. I mean, she was still processing and really said she felt like a zombie. It's important to point out that State Patrol, Iowa's governor, local officials, they have all said they cannot give us even a number, just saying multiple deaths, multiple injuries at this point. And again, they kept emphasizing we're still in search and rescue mode. They really want to keep that hope alive. But Hallie, just kind of adding to the chaos here, one final point. The hospital itself here was also damaged. So last night, injured people were taken first to a local lumber yard to get treatment. And then today, the triage center, we're told, is at the local high school. So that's kind of how things are operating here on the ground.
You talked about the triage center being at the local high school. Isn't that also with a shelter for people who have nowhere else to go for this curfew?
Yeah, it's 2 in 1. I mean, they really don't have much usable space at this point, especially large usable space. So they told us they're using it for both at this point.
Maggie Vespa, just so scary to see some of those images. Thank you. Let me get to Bill Cairns, because, Bill, 24 hours ago on this show, you were looking at those trees that had been stripped from bark in that live shot from our affiliate, and you were talking about the absolute worst-case scenario, which is what we've seen on the ground. Now you've got this tornado that may have just touched down in Texas. Is it still on the ground? Where is this going? What do we know?
It did generate another tornado since we last talked, but it's been out over rural areas, so I haven't heard of any damage. That's the thing with tornadoes. I mean, you can have the strongest tornado out there, and if it doesn't hit anything, it just dissipates eventually. But, you know, in the case yesterday, obviously it went right through the center of town, or actually the southwest corner of Greenfield. So this is the tornado that we've been talking about, this storm that's right over the top of San Angelo. San Angelo itself, you're under severe thunderstorm warning, and when you see all the bright reds and the pinks, this is producing large hail. So everyone in San Angelo right now, you're looking out your window and you're seeing hail falling and you're hoping and crossing your fingers it doesn't dent your car. This little hook on the backside is if we get a tornado spin up, that's where it would be. These little red icons show you where the 2 tornadoes were reported earlier today. We also have been watching a lot of heavy rain in Arkansas. We had a tornado warning with this storm that was just south of Interstate 30. It looks like that has since been dropped, so that's good. Just normal heavy rain up around Little Rock southwards to Arkadelphia. Then to the north into areas around Nashville. You notice how large of a part of the country we're touring here? We've had some strong thunderstorms roll through. Now you're getting a little bit of a break. Stronger storms down by Columbia. And if you remember, Columbia about 2 weeks ago was hit by a really strong tornado. So I'm sure, anytime they have a storm nowadays, you look out the window and you're just hoping for the best. So tornado watch continues to 8 o'clock. That does include the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but things are looking better for you. I think Waco is the next city I'm going to be watching carefully when the next round of storms go through in about an hour. All the way further to the north, around Nashville, it looks like the worst is just about over with for you. And because it's been raining so much lately and it's been pouring in a few spots, we have numerous flash flood warnings, especially north and northeast of Dallas, up into areas almost into Oklahoma. A few spots in Arkansas will be a flash flood warnings. So you get the idea here with the rainfall from these storms on saturated ground. We're going to have additional flash flooding issues right through the overnight. And then tomorrow, Hallie, guess what? We do it all over again, but this time we're heading back north. The worst of it and the best chance of tornadoes will be in Kansas, especially in Nebraska and possibly South Dakota. More wind damage and hail in areas of Texas. And unfortunately, a big heads up, Hallie, for all our viewers. If you have weekend plans in the Midwest, Sunday looks like a tornado outbreak is possible.
Jeez.
So if you're on your vacation for your holiday, make sure you're paying attention.
It is just relentless, Bill. These folks can't catch a break. Thank you for staying on top of all of it. I know you're going to be watching it throughout the night. Appreciate it. Elsewhere in Texas, in just the last few hours, parents of the 19 students killed in Uvalde are revealing a new lawsuit against nearly 100 officers who they say failed to adequately respond to this mass shooting. You see the father of 9-year-old Jackie Cazares there saying something has got to change.
Justice and accountability has always been my main concern. We've been let down so many times. The time has come to do the right thing.
Remember, nearly 400 local, state, federal officers showed up to this scene, but it took 77 minutes. 77 minutes before any of them went into the classroom where the shooter had those kids trapped. The Justice Department calling it cascading failures. You had kids calling 911, body cam video that reveals officers heard the shots and did not go inside. The attack left 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers dead. You see their names and faces there. It'll be 2 years Friday since it happened. Guad Venegas is joining us now. And Guad, we had talked last hour about any response from DPS, the Texas Department of Public Safety, to this lawsuit. I understand you're just now hearing from them. Not much, but tell us more.
Hallie, yes, we reached out to the Department of Public Safety to see if they had a response to this lawsuit, which is against 92 of their officers, and they did answer, and they said they do not discuss pending litigation. Now, the Texas Department of Public Safety has been under a lot of scrutiny from the beginning when this shooting happened. If you remember 2 years ago, when a lot of the press was present in Uvalde asking for answers, it was quite difficult to communicate with them. At one point, their public information officer had given information that was not completely accurate, so there was a lot of back and forth. So it's been quite difficult just getting information from the Department of Public Safety, and now this is all they're saying about the lawsuit that was announced today, Hallie.
Tell us more about what we heard from some of these attorneys, from the family's lawyer, who really put this push toward restorative justice by Uvalde front and center.
So the main thing the attorney wanted to communicate, as well as some of the families of the victims that spoke, the family members that spoke, is that they want officers to be held accountable for what happened that day. They believe that officers did not follow their job to confront the shooter, as we've discussed many, many times, and they feel like they haven't been held accountable, and that's really what they're looking for, more than some type of economic settlement. We know that they also announced a settlement with the city of Uvalde. In that settlement, they are receiving $2 million. Now, the attorney did say that they capped it at $2 million because the families don't want the city of Uvalde to be bankrupt. The attorney said that the state needs to come in with more help because the city just doesn't have all the resources necessary. They did agree as part of that settlement to create a commission that will establish a memorial in town. They will also have a commission that will overlook the grave sites of these victims. There's also going to be more training for officers within the police department. Department and more resources when it comes to mental health. All of this because they say they want to build a new bridge between the police department, the city, and the community. Here's the attorney speaking.
The last thing they would want to do was to inflict any financial hardship on their friends and neighbors in this community. Their friends and neighbors didn't let them down.
Now, the one thing I do want to mention, going back to the lawsuit, is that the lawsuit is naming the school district as well as Robb Elementary's principal and the former chief of the independent school district police department, Hallie.
Quickly, Guad, just before I let you go, there's this other new piece of information that's come out in just the last 24 hours. The new head of the Uvalde School District Police resigning. Now, he was not there. He was not in that role at the time of the Robb Elementary school shooting 2 years ago. He did not have a leading role. But I wonder how much that speaks to instability more generally in Uvalde right now.
Right. So when the shooting happened, the chief was Pete Arredondo, who was heavily criticized and questioned because of that response. He was fired from his position and someone took over. Joshua Gutierrez came in and he became the interim chief. We know that he was focused on rebuilding that police department, but you can imagine the amount of challenges that they have been facing, not just internally with the changes, with the training, but also the public image. That's a very, very hard role to fill, knowing what's happened in Uvalde and what it means to represent this the police department of the school district. So we'll have to wait and see what they decide moving forward and who can be the new chief.
Guad Venegas, thank you. To Pennsylvania now, and a town there in shock tonight. A suspected shooter in custody after killing 2 people and hurting 3 others in a workplace shooting. This happened right outside Philly, with the suspect being described as a disgruntled former employee. Officials say this person opened fire early this morning inside and outside the linen rental and laundry business you see in here. No ID on the shooter yet, no concrete motive, but Erin McLaughlin has made her way to Chester. She is joining us now. What are you hearing from folks on the ground?
Hey, Hallie. Well, I'm standing just outside of the linen company in question. Not far from here lives James Pierce, 71 years old. He said he was inside his home at around 8:30 this morning when he heard 8 shots fired. He looked out the window. He says he saw a number of people running from that linen company down the street. He says he then called 911. The dispatcher told him to stay inside. He said that once the police arrived, he says he heard 3 more shots fired and saw a body outside of the business. Those were the dramatic events that unfolded this morning. There was a police chase that ended in a city not far from here. They say they apprehended the suspect. Authorities today calling this a tragedy. Take a listen.
The information I have right now is the employee had some issues with fellow employees, but nothing that would lead to what happened today. I mean, this is just everyone's worst nightmare. Another example of somebody who had access to a firearm who shouldn't have, and took out whatever anger he had for whatever reason on the employees of his poor business.
Now, according to the Gun Violence Archive, this is the 169th mass shooting here in the United States. Authorities here in Chester tonight are calling for change. Hallie.
Erin McLaughlin, live for us from Chester tonight. Thank you. So some breaking news now off the campaign trail. Former President Trump's biggest former competitor for the Republican nomination, Nikki Haley, sharing more about who she will vote for come November. Listen to what she's saying.
Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump.
It was not automatically assumed that she would end up coming to that decision during the campaign. And listen, politics is what it is, but she did not have always very kind words for Donald Trump. Here's what she told our Craig Melvin right before the South Carolina primary.
He is unhinged. He is more diminished than he was.
Restoring women's freedom.
Vaughn Hilliard is joining us now. Vaughn, I'm old enough to remember when Nikki Haley was warning of the dangers of a Donald Trump presidency after 2024. It was not a foregone conclusion that she would come to this decision. What changed?
For Nikki Haley, I think a lot of this is, a similar story to 8 years ago, right? She compared Donald Trump back during the 2016 campaign to a kindergartner, and she ended up working for his presidential administration as a UN ambassador. And then on January 6th, she called it an ugly day and said those who broke the law should be punished, right? But then she ended up coming back around to Donald Trump, and she then announced that she was going to run for the presidency herself and try to primary challenge him. And there was a lot of tension during the course of that primary campaign. Her husband was deployed to Africa, and Donald Trump made some comments about him, and she was quite explicit at the time, just calling the comments disgusting, awful, unhinged, that someone that makes such comments doesn't deserve to be commander-in-chief. She even went on to say, quote, the most harm he's ever come across is whether a golf ball hits him on a golf cart. These were very tough words that went from Nikki Haley to Donald Trump, yet she finds herself in a position of not having a clear political future. And she, during these remarks here, said that Joe Biden's administration has been a catastrophe. And so in a one-versus-one option, she chose to go with Donald Trump.
She also said that Donald Trump would be smart to reach out, I'm quoting here, to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me and not just assume that they're going to be with him. I wonder, I don't know yet because she literally just said this like 90 seconds ago, but I wonder if we will actually see Donald Trump do that, considering that to this point, his attitude has largely been, and I'm sort of paraphrasing it here, like, hey, you're in or you're out. Like here, right. It's this or nothing.
Twofold. Most of the time, Donald Trump is eager to welcome anybody back into the fray, no matter how big of enemies they once were. He welcomes anybody coming and essentially kissing the ring. But then on the other hand of this is that Nikki Haley was somebody who just 2 weeks ago, he was very explicit, saying that she would not be under consideration for the vice presidency. A lot of his very close allies are very reticent to Nikki Haley and do not trust her. And so for Donald Trump, he is largely looking at this campaign as one where they believe they can rely on the base of support, and they don't necessarily need to meet those independents or reticent conservatives who willfully voted for for Joe Biden in the past. But instead, if they can juice their own support, they don't need to try to win over the support of Nikki Haley type voters, because they believe that they have enough other type of Trump voters around the country to make up for those that they may lose that are more consider themselves like Nikki Haley voters, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard, lots to watch on the campaign trail today. Thank you so much. To Washington now and Capitol Hill, where Senate Democrats are hoping to put Republicans on the spot as it relates to reproductive rights, and specifically the new front in that repro rights battle, birth control. You've got top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, revealing today plans to roll out this new bill that would federally protect access to contraceptives. Listen.
Senate Democrats are committed to restoring women's freedoms and will fight to protect access to contraception, and other reproductive freedoms that are essential safeguards for millions of women to control their own lives, their futures, and their bodies.
Why today? Why now? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, this push will be timed to next month, of course, marking 2 years since the Supreme Court overturned that landmark abortion access ruling, Roe versus Wade. And it comes just a day after former President Trump had to clean up these comments. Listen.
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting.
That's when the former president was asked specifically about whether he'd support restricting access to contraceptives. Just hours later, instead of saying, we're looking at it, he said this. He will never and has never advocated for restrictions on birth control or other contraceptives. He says there will be no ban. It's happening as we're seeing this issue in the spotlight, not just in Washington, but all around the country, with more states restricting access to abortion since Roe was overturned. Some of them in some new ways. Just yesterday, we told you about how the Louisiana House moved one step closer to criminalizing abortion drugs, 2 of them, by reclassifying them as controlled dangerous substances, making it illegal under this plan for anybody without a prescription to have access to them. We understand that that bill is going to be reconciled by the state Senate before it goes to the governor's desk to sign. Sahil Kapoor is joining us now. Okay, Sahil, let's talk to us about what the sort of bigger picture piece of this, where you are on Capitol Hill, because it seems like Democrats are looking to go on offense on an issue that they see as politically mobilizing for voters come November.
That's absolutely right, Hallie. This goes one of two ways from here. Either Republicans in the Senate help pass the bill, in which case Chuck Schumer and Democrats will claim a policy victory, or they block the bill, in which case Democrats beat them over the head with it politically. The piece of legislation is called the Right to Contraception Act. It would establish federal rights for access to contraceptives and prohibit states from making laws that prohibit in any way the sale or use of contraception. Republicans reacted to this by downplaying the need for it. They indicated that it's not really necessary, and they suggested there was a political motive on the part of Democrats. Take a listen.
He's going to do these sort of political messaging bills because he knows he's underwater in a couple of states, and he's trying to create a political foothold for some of his incumbents.
It doesn't seem necessary to me. I think Republicans do support that. Yeah. I'm not sure why you need to put a bill on the floor.
Now, why is Schumer doing this? A recent poll by Navigator tells the story here. It shows access to birth control is overwhelmingly popular. 74% of those surveyed said it should be easier to access. 16% said the law is fine as is, and 5% said they weren't sure. Only 5% said it should be more difficult to access. These are overwhelming numbers, rare to find on an issue, and Democrats feel very comfortable going on offense on this side of the culture war, Hallie.
There's another piece of this, just pulling out a bit more big picture here as it relates to former President Trump, because he suggested in that interview, again, with KDKA, when asked about contraceptives, that he would have a plan to reveal shortly. In that instance, it was just a matter of hours between when he said that and when he put up that Truth Social post clarifying his position on birth control, that he has no intention to ever ban it. That is not always the case when it comes to the former president and some of these key issues. Explain that.
Yeah, Donald Trump has struggled with this issue repeatedly when it comes to abortion, when it comes to reproductive rights generally. Now it's happening kind of with contraceptives and mifepristone. He is the de facto leader of the conservative movement and the Republican Party, which is very divided on these issues. And Trump says something sometimes that's his instinct and then ends up having to walk it back because it isn't the party line. He has said repeatedly when asked about these issues, I'll have a statement, it's coming later, it's coming later. He often offers up deadlines and doesn't stick to them. But this is an issue that Trump has very openly said he worries about politically. He said it could cost Republicans the House, the Senate, and the White House if they don't play it correctly, Hallie. It's a rare thing to see him do.
Sahil Kapoor live for us on the Hill tonight. Sahil, thank you. Down Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House, President Biden meeting with the Kenyan president, a rare meeting, the first leader of an African nation to come for a state visit since 2008. Here's the president.
Today, as we honor 60 years of ties between our countries, it's clear that our people are the true strength of this partnership and a partnership that's working well.
It comes as Kenya is set to lead a big push to send about 1,000 of its own police officers to Haiti to try to bring some kind of peace there after months of violence and chaos and unrest. But it could end up delayed, partly because of a new fight in Congress over how much the U.S. should pay for it. Our Gabe Gutierrez reports.
With armed gangs tightening their grip on Haiti. Late today, William Ruto, the president of Kenya, arrived at the White House for a state visit. His country is getting ready to send police to stabilize Haiti, part of a larger UN effort.
Kenya has worked side by side with the United States to tackle some of the most significant challenges of our time.
The UN says more than 1,500 people have been killed in Haiti this year. No elections for years, violent protests, and a mass prison break, forcing its prime minister to resign, and prompting dramatic rescues of Americans trapped in and around the capital, Port-au-Prince, which is mostly controlled by gangs led by a former police officer nicknamed Barbecue. Some gang members are suspected of having ties to the assassination of Haiti's president in 2021. We reported from the neighboring Dominican Republic on the hundreds of Americans evacuated from Haiti this year.
The UN just announcing that it's launching an air bridge, essentially a humanitarian corridor in the sky to bring over humanitarian aid.
The Biden administration planned to set aside $300 million to help the Kenyan-led multinational security force, which was expected to deploy police to Haiti this week, although a U.S. official now tells NBC News the timing is still up in the air. The procurement of more equipment, including armored vehicles and radios, is expected by the end of the month.
Haiti's on the precipice of becoming an all-out failed state.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken testified on Capitol Hill Tuesday as top Republicans try to block more money that the Biden administration says is necessary to help Haiti. House Foreign Affairs Chair Michael McCaul and Senate Foreign Relations Ranking Member Jim Risch are blasting the White House for approving a $60 million military aid package last month. Writing in a letter to Blinken, the administration is rushing to fund an undefined and indefinite engagement in Haiti without congressional approval.
You know, I know some people have concerns about the United States being the quote-unquote policeman of the world. Well, here's a situation where Kenya and a number of other countries have stepped up and are willing to take this on, but they need support.
Gabe Gutierrez is joining us here now on set. Gabe, how is it that Kenya ended up taking the lead on this front? You mentioned there's a lot of countries involved.
Oh, yeah, Hallie. So the UN Security Council voted to put this together last year, and it's actually Kenya's president who volunteered for this. But there's actually been a lot of pushback, Hallie, inside the country. Some critics in Parliament don't think it's a good idea. They're accusing the president of doing it for financial gain. So there's a lot of internal pushback there. But as for the U.S. has been very clear that they don't want to contribute troops, their own troops, but they have really been one of the primary backers for this financially.
Other countries have tried to step in before. That hasn't worked. What makes people think this time could be any different?
Well, that is a big question, isn't it? I mean, the U.S. involved in the 90s when John Bertrand Aristide, the U.S. tried to get this under control. It happened again in 2000 and 2000s. The UN sent in a peacekeeping force as well that left in 2017. Nothing has changed. Haiti has still faced a multitude of problems. And this time it will be police sent in from Kenya. We understand that they've been taking French lessons, that they've been training the last couple of months. But a question becomes, one, how much is this going to cost? And will the U.S. eventually need to get dragged into this because there are so many problems in Haiti? And really, the gangs control about 80% of Port-au-Prince. The airport just reopened just a few days ago. But there's a lot of questions about moving forward, how much the U.S. will have to get involved here.
It's an important story, Gabe. I'm glad you're staying on top of it from the ground here in Washington. Thank you very much for being with us. Coming up, a second person in the U.S. is now infected with bird flu, according to officials. The new details coming in just now about potential risks to everybody else. Plus, a new update from Buckingham Palace on Princess Kate's health, when she's expected to return to royal duties. Coming up. So the company responsible for most of the computing power behind the AI boom is just rolling out some crazy big numbers in its earnings report. Look at this. For NVIDIA, sales are up something like 260%. Revenue, $26 billion. That's $1 billion plus higher than expectations. NVIDIA's been on an absolute tear. Its stocks spiked 200% over the past year, which has really helped propel the whole stock market to some record highs. It's all on the back of NVIDIA's dominance in making those really advanced microchips that power AI. The company's basically a one-stop shop for other companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, so that those places can, do anything with AI. Investopedia's Caleb Silver is joining us now. So perhaps no surprise that it does have this gangbusters earnings report, right?
Yeah, it is in the sweet spot. There are story stocks, and we all know them from the past, Apple, Amazon, Google. And then there's NVIDIA, which has really dominated making these microprocessors, these semiconductors, to power AI, to power gaming. It has been the company in the middle of it all, and it has generated amazing returns. You talked about a 200% return in the stock in the past year. How about 2,350% over the past 5 years? And it's still growing, and it's telling us through this earnings report and past earnings reports that the appetite for AI is real, and it's going to last several years. This is not a flash-in-the-pan technology. This is something that's going to be with us for a while, and this is the company that is supplying the microchips that make it all happen.
Why is it that NVIDIA has such a big lead over its competitors? I mean, it feels almost insurmountable at this point. I'm sure the competitors would disagree, but what about these other chip makers?
Yeah, the other chip makers have been trying, and those are the AMDs of the world, and they make great chips as well. But NVIDIA was early to the market. They've been early to every market they've been in, and this is not a Silicon Valley company that just popped up out of nowhere. It's been around since 1993, led by Jensen Huang, who is kind of a celebrity CEO. You showed him earlier in the leather jacket. He is worshipped around Wall Street and around Silicon Valley because they get to these markets early, whether it's gaming or supplying chips for mining cryptocurrency, and now supplying the chips for AI, for ChatGPT, Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, the biggest companies in the world. NVIDIA is right in the middle of it, and shareholders love this company.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. So, Amazon apparently planning to revamp Alexa, according to some new reporting from our friends at CNBC, as the company's trying to compete with the next generation of those AI chatbots, like this one.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. It's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice.
How did she know that he was rocking an OpenAI hoodie? Well, the ChatGPT chatbot, the one that got into some hot water for sounding too much like Scarlett Johansson, can see things through the phone's camera. It can hold full conversations with users. So Amazon's like, all right, we got to answer to this. This is how they're starting to do it, by apparently revamping Alexa. But you're going to have to pay to see it, with sources telling CNBC the company's going to charge extra to experience it. Kate Rooney broke the story for CNBC. She's joining us now. Alexa is 10 years old, I think, this year. It was like the thing, the hot thing. Everybody loved it. Now, kind of the grandma of the bunch. How did that happen?
Totally, Hallie. That's so ironic. It's interesting you say that. You think of how impressive this product was in 2014 and how blown away consumers were and how popular this was. If you flash forward to today, and you described it in your intro really well, those devices from OpenAI and from Google are a lot smarter. So the technology has come a long way in the past decade. Alexa's really built on sort of the old school version of AI. Generative AI tends to go a lot deeper. It's much more creative, and you can have these two-way conversations. But right now, the way Alexa's built and was designed, they poured billions of dollars into the old way of doing things, and it's going to take a long time to kind of turn that ship around, but they are very much in the process of doing that. This was also Jeff Bezos's passion project. People I was talking to that used to work in the Alexa division told me he loved this product. He really wanted to pour money and resources into it. And then the new CEO, Andy Jassy, is a little bit more disciplined on the cost side, isn't a founder, so isn't going to take those big swings. And they've been a little bit more sober when it comes to spending on it.
But what you're talking about, the way that Alexa sort of is this big behemoth, if you will, can also work to Amazon's advantage, and that millions of people already have Alexas, right? I mean, that's something that works in Amazon's favor.
Yeah, there's 500 million Alexa-enabled devices out there. So engineers you talk to say that's a massive advantage. You've got it in people's homes. They trust it to a certain extent, and they're going to use it. But that can also mean that the bar is higher. So if you think about, we've talked about ChatGPT and what Google's done. Those are also known for making mistakes. If you say, you know, Alexa, open my garage door, and it turns on your stove, that was one example an engineer gave. The bar is so much higher, so they need to make sure that when they do roll this out, that it works flawlessly. So that is one thing that they're working against. And then it's just a hard thing to do. Engineering talent is scarce in Silicon Valley and these big tech companies. Somebody described it to me as finding an NFL quarterback, finding one of these engineers. They're very rare. They're well paid. And so Amazon's got to find the smartest minds to kind of take it into this new generation of AI and make Alexa something that we're going to want to use for something other than, you know, a kitchen timer or just telling you what the weather is.
Yeah, or the kids' songs or whatever it is. Kate Rooney, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, Michigan health officials say a farm worker has been infected with bird flu linked to dairy cows. Now, this is the second confirmed human case like this in this country. Apparently, this person had mild symptoms but recovered. The CDC is checking samples to see if the virus mutated in ways that could let it spread more easily between people. Number 2, President Biden canceling more than $7.5 billion in federal student loan debt for about 160,000 people. This comes after some broader moves to try to get some student loan debt relief failed. The Education Department says nearly 5 million people have now benefited from things that the administration did to try to cancel debt. Number 3, the Prime Minister of the UK today calling for a new general election on July 4th to determine who will govern the country. Rishi Sunak was required to hold a vote by January, so now we know when it'll happen. His Conservative Party looks pretty likely to lose power after 14 years. Number 4, millions of Americans won't be able to access some of their money for something like 2 weeks because of a fight between a financial tech startup and its banking partners. This is according to bankruptcy court filings. We're talking about Synapse, a middleman between fintech brands and FDIC-backed banks. But disagreements with several of Synapse's partners about how much in customer balances it owes is leaving some users stranded without any access to their money. Number 5, a big legal win today for the family of Elvis Presley. A judge in Tennessee blocking the foreclosure sale of Graceland. It's a story we first told you about yesterday. Presley's granddaughter fighting to stop what she says is a fraudulent scheme to auction off the property. When we come back, The very first comments from two major Chiefs players and its head coach on the controversial commencement address from their kicker. It's coming up. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching, the Divided States of America, our special series this election year. And tonight takes us out west to Idaho, where red state realtors are finding plenty of reasons for relocation. On the road outside Boise,
it's the second largest city in Idaho.
A tour from two transplants.
Do you regret your decision at all to move from Seattle?
Not one iota.
Jason and Kelly Krafsky moved to Idaho from Washington State 2.5 years ago.
The elephant in the room is that for political reasons. I mean, we're more red than blue, especially during the lockdown. Was just
well, that's when it really kind of hit us.
It got really egregious.
The people are great here.
They liked it so much they moved their careers here too. They're both realtors on a mission.
We just decided that was going to be our new business model, which is help people transplant from Washington or California or Oregon here to the Boise area, because we did it and we know how hard it is.
How's that business been?
Very, very good. You can canoe. You can
Some clients coming to them through a group called Conservative Move, which provides resources to help people relocate somewhere redder. Idaho's one of the fastest growing states in the country, behind only Florida last year. And part of the draw for some, not just the panoramas, but the politics. More places now are either way more red or way more blue than they used to be, according to presidential election data. Back in 2004, fewer than 200 counties voted in big blowouts, a landslide one way or the other. But in 2020, that number tripled to nearly 700, including some counties in Texas. That's states where Kirby Wilbur calls himself a refugee resettlement specialist.
We're conservative, and I think if you're moving and going through this trauma, it helps to have someone who understands you and agrees with you and is able to help you because they've been through the same process.
People like Emma and Matthew Carruthers, who considered Tennessee, too, before settling just outside Dallas.
Kirby knew what we were looking for, and not just because he knows us, but he knows kind of the environment that we're looking for.
At the end of the day, we did it for our kids. For a better life for them.
It works both ways, with some agents aiming to help more liberal homeowners leave conservative states. For Wilbur, it's simple. People who know what they like should like where they live.
Texas isn't perfect, but if I may paraphrase Ronald Reagan, it's not heaven, but it's in the same zip code.
So that group, Conservative Move, says in the last couple of years, it's not just Texas and Florida, but South Carolina now is the top 3 states where they're seeing the company's clients buying homes. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Iran, the country's supreme leader and thousands of Iranians mourning the deaths of President Raisi and other top officials at a big funeral in Tehran. You remember Raisi and the others were killed in a helicopter crash on Sunday. It was ruled an accident. At the funeral, people chanted death to America and death to Israel. Out of the UK, Kate Middleton's waiting for the green light from her doctors before she can get back to her royal duties, according to a senior Buckingham Palace aide. The aide also says Princess Kate would like some space and privacy to get better after going through treatment for cancer. And out of Mexico, people there are giving monkeys water and fruit after more than 100 of them fell out of trees and died during a very intense heat wave. Temperatures spiked to about 113 degrees. There's drought, there's these forest fires hitting the area. Many monkeys were taken in for treatment, and vets say the ones who survived are fortunately on the mend. Still ahead, inside the wild west of million-dollar deals for college football players, why one star QB is suing a power conference coach. In just the last hour or so, we're hearing from the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs about those controversial comments by his kicker, Harrison Butker. Remember, Butker caught the country's attention with his commencement speech at a Catholic college, where he talked about his, in his words, traditional views about women, the LGBTQ+ community, and abortion, with his head coach, Andy Reid, defending the right to make those comments.
We all respect each other's
opinions, and not necessarily do we go by those, but we respect everybody to have a voice. It's a great thing about America, man.
Maura Barrett is joining us now. Interestingly, we also heard from Patrick Mahomes, of course, the star quarterback's kind of the face of the NFL, at least one of them, and he seemed to be putting a bit more distance between himself and Butker. Fair?
Yeah, Hallie, and remember, this is the first time we're hearing any reaction from Harrison Butker's teammates, and that's after we saw a lot of reaction from fans and online in the last week and a half since the commencement speech. And Mahomes went on to point out that he's known Butker for about 7 years now, but in the locker room, when they're all teammates, there's a lot of differing values, and they respect each other, but they also, he recognizes that they have different opinions on this. And so I wanted to hear some of what he responded to when asked about his reaction to Butker's commencement speech today.
There's certain things that he said that I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand the person that he is, and he's trying to do whatever he can to lead people in the right direction. And that might not be the same values as I have, but at the same time, I'm going to judge him by the character that he shows every single day. That's a great person.
And so we heard from both Mahomes and Reed expressing frustration about these off-field distractions, as they put it, during the offseason, appearing to refer to the commencement address, but also potentially wide receiver Rashee Rice's drama around those charges he's facing on that 6-car collision in Dallas. Also, there's that alleged nightclub assault. And so that's something that they say they need to work together towards as a team and learn from that. But either way, a lot of attention on the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Also important to point out, we haven't seen any reaction yet from Butker's teammate's girlfriend, as he put it, as we all know her as Taylor Swift. Nothing from Travis Kelce as of yet either. Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We are getting a never-before-seen look into the wild west of new money rules, or the lack of them, in college sports, with a new lawsuit against the head football coach at the University of Florida from a quarterback who says he got screwed out of millions of dollars. We're talking about Jaden Rashada. According to court documents obtained by our team, Rashada's lawyers say, quote, false and fraudulent promises by the Florida head coach, Billy Napier, a former staffer and a big-time booster at UF, made him change his college commitments. So here's the deal. Rashada says he had this $9.5 million deal lined up in 2022 from boosters at the University of Miami. That's a big rival to Florida. But Rashada's lawyers say then he flipped to UF because the coach and booster dangled a deal worth nearly $14 million. To put it in context, the top quarterback in that year's NFL draft, Kenny Pickett, had a nearly identical rookie deal. This one's for a kid who was still in high school at the time. Rashada says Napier personally promised he'd get $1 million the day he committed. Rashada says that never happened. To be clear, the University of Florida and its athletic association are not parties in this lawsuit. NBC News has reached out to Napier for comment and has not heard back. Morgan Chesky is all over this one for us. Here's the bottom line of it all, right? The idea that this whole thing is exposing what is a very big gray area in this new world of college sports. Like the school's coach is getting sued, but the school's, not really sort of a part of this. How does this make sense?
Hallie, that is an incredibly good question here, and I think it all goes to show just how much of a gray area exists right now when it comes to collegiate athletics. In this specific case, you have the coach being sued, but not the school, because the parties that were trying to set up this NIL deal were specifically separate from the university itself, including Coach Napier, as mentioned in that lawsuit, also mentioning that booster, who's a multi-millionaire, funding a large portion of this payment, and then a now defunct organization that works to kind of gather donor money to then funnel into these NIL deals. So that is why you kind of have this layer of separation here, seeing UF distancing themselves right now. I do want to share with you a statement from the attorney for Jaden Rashada, Rusty Hardin, saying, sadly, unethical and illegal tactics like this are more and more commonplace in the Wild West that is today's college football landscape. As the first scholar athlete to take a stand against such egregious behavior by adults who should know better, Jaden seeks to hold defendants accountable for their actions and to expose the unchecked abuse of power that they shamelessly wielded. Strong words there, but this does go to show, Hallie, how much this is evolving in real time here as they try to put some of these laws into place when they see the need. Here's what a sports law expert has to say about this. Take a listen.
So there's this vacuum where athletes as recruits understandably want to maximize their market value, but they're doing so in a world where the law isn't playing a big role. And as a result, there are misunderstandings, there are maybe reneged promises.
multi-million-dollar misunderstandings. So where do things go from here remains to say. The defendant's staying relatively quiet right now, Hallie, but there is a lot of intricacies tucked within this lawsuit, a kind of word-of-mouth promises that may not have been explicitly written down, and it's going to be very interesting to see how much of this holds up in a court of law, seeing as that Jaden is the first one to do this. Hallie?
He's good, obviously, and people who know more about college football than I do will say that he is good, but he is not necessarily like the biggest superstar in college football right now, which makes you think, okay, well, what about for those biggest of the big names, right? Like, what does this mean for them?
I think a lot of people are definitely going to be watching and waiting to see how this plays out, and it could set a precedent for a formality in how these NIL deals are introduced and put in place. Of course, everyone's trying to get those top athletes. We do know that, while he hasn't been necessarily name recognition as other college superstars, he is a strong quarterback in his own right, and we know that Rashada was the top-rated QB in the transfer portal. He, of course, leaves Florida to go to Arizona State, where over the last year he had, 485 passing yards, 4 TDs, 3 interceptions there, Hallie, but he was injured in the second game, didn't come back towards the end of this season here. So there's a lot of potential here that I think schools were betting on when they looked at Rashada, and that's why I think you saw that much money in play, and that's why we're going to have so many eyes on this going forward as well.
Totally. It's super fascinating. Morgan Chesky, thank you for breaking it down. I appreciate it. It's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.